Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Tom's Gadget Garage. Today is new scooter day and I'm going to be doing a feature overview as well as first impressions ride on the newly released Ausom L2 Max. Now this is a full suspension dual motor scooter which Ausom claims can get up to 40 miles an hour as well as 56 miles of theoretical range, all for a price of under $900. That's right folks, as of the filming of this video, this scooter is priced under 900 bucks. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is take you through a quick overview of the features of this scooter, then we're going to hop on it and take it out on our first impressions ride. Now full disclosure, Ausom did send this to me for review purposes, but as always, all thoughts, opinions, and conclusions are my own. Now, at the end of this, if you decide you want to pick up one of these scooters, I will include a link as well as any available coupons in the description below, and if you use those to make your purchase, it absolutely helps support this channel and keeps the wheels moving on future reviews. So, without further delay, let's jump into the details. Alright folks, so to start off with a couple high-level stats, I did put this scooter on my commercial scale, and it does weigh in at 73.2 pounds. Now in terms of rider capacity, usually with scooters like this, we see a 265 pound or 120 kilogram capacity. This scooter actually supports riders up to 287 pounds or approximately 130 kilograms. So it's a heavier scooter, but it also carries a larger load capacity. Starting at the rear of the scooter, we do have this plastic fender. It does come pre-installed, and it's got pretty good coverage from front to back. At the rear of the fender, we do have this brake light, tail light combo, and when you pull on the brake levers, it does get brighter. The tires on this L2 Max are 10-inch by 3-inch tubeless pneumatic tires, which is a bit of an upgrade because a lot of Ausom's other scooters use tubed pneumatic tires. We've also got an upgraded tread pattern, which should make these a much quieter ride. Here we've got our cable actuated disc brakes, and these discs are 140 millimeters both in the rear and the front. And before taking the scooter out on your first ride, you just want to make sure the discs aren't rubbing, and if they are, you do have 2 hex screws, one on either side. You can loosen those up, adjust this, and make sure that the rotor is properly positioned between the 2 brake pads. Tighten it up and you should be good to go. And speaking of brakes, the L2 Max also has electronic braking in both the rear and the front motor. As I mentioned earlier, this is a full suspension scooter, and here at the back you will see our coil spring, which is a different type of coil spring than they use in, let's say the DT1 Pro, and I much prefer these. This is very similar to what we see on the Ausom Gallop as well as the original Ausom Leopard. They're not hydraulic, but they do have rubber dampeners built in, which should make for a very quiet ride. Also, if you have the appropriate tool, you can adjust these and either increase or decrease the tension on that coil. Now behind our disc brake and at the hub of this wheel is going to be our 1000 nominal watt motor, and this scooter of course has 2 motors, so you're looking at 2000 nominal watts, and Ausom does claim this scooter can crank out 2688 watts of peak power. Here we've got our nice forged metal swing arms, which say dual motor, just a little bit of a flex for people watching you cruise around the streets. In typical Ausom fashion, this here looks like just a regular little plastic trim piece, but that is in fact your turn signal. And I did try this out during the day. It is pretty bright, but this is going to be most effective when riding around at night. Here at the front of the scooter, you do have what appears to be a front turn signal. Unfortunately, this is just a plastic trim piece. There is no turn signal at the front. At the rear of the deck, we do have this kick plate, which in my opinion should be a standard feature on all scooters. And if you're curious what this kick plate measures at, the actual usable portion is approximately 6 inches. You've probably already noticed this already, but the deck does have this integrated electric blue lighting, which I think is a fantastic touch. The deck itself doesn't have any kind of silicone or rubber matting, nor does it have any grip tape. What it has instead is this plastic textured area. That way you don't lose your footing. In terms of the deck dimensions, I do have the deck width sitting at about 7¼ inches, and then the deck length here, at least the usable space, 18¾ inches. And the length from the top of the deck all the way to the top of the handlebars is approximately 42 inches. At the front of the deck, we do have this Ausom branding as well as 2 charging ports, and each one of these does have a weather seal. That way you're not getting water all up in there. So given that this scooter has a 48 volt 20.8 amp hour battery, you're looking at approximately 14 hours of charge time from 0% all the way to 100%. So you're definitely going to want to plan your charging. But as I mentioned, this scooter does have 2 charging ports, so you can buy an optional second charger and charge this thing up in 7 hours. Here at the front, we do have the neck of the scooter, and if you're curious, this is a plastic trim piece, makes it look all fancy. Under this, you do have metal support. So it is a metal neck under here. It's just fancied up with some plastic trim. At the front of the scooter, we do have our steering assembly, our front coil spring, our pre-installed plastic fender, and then, of course, our tire, motor, and brake assembly. Something I do want to mention is that this scooter does have a notch that's actually built into the steering assembly. So, as you can see, I turn it here, and then there's a notch. I turn it back, there's a notch, I turn it, and that notch is going to help with straight line stability for this scooter. If you're curious what this funny looking thing is here, that is actually our headlight. I'll go ahead and turn that on. And I'll tell you right now, this thing actually does a pretty decent job of illuminating the path ahead. So one thing I do want to mention about this headlight is that when I unboxed it and took it out, you know, on my first little ride to make sure the brakes and everything were working properly, I heard some rattling. As you can hear, there's a little bit of a rattle there. This thing wasn't secured, so you actually want to make sure you twist this in, get it nice and snug. That way, it's not rattling anymore. Now, the latching mechanism is arguably one of the most important components of an electric scooter, and here we've got a spring-loaded safety mechanism, and if you want to undo this, you basically twist this knob. You'll see that this little metal wedge piece comes out, and as soon as that's nice and free and clear, you can pull out the safety mechanism and then fold the stem down. Now, once this gets lowered down towards the deck, you will see we've got a hook mechanism here. You just want to extend that out, and then you can place it here, lock it into place, and now you can carry your scooter. Just know that if you bounce this around, it will come undone, so just be aware of that. While we've got this stem in this position, I'm going to go ahead and show you what we've got here. So we've got some trim pieces, which are really nice, and then we've got a USB-A and USB-C charging port. They give you both, which is pretty nice. Usually on scooters, you see USB-A, which is kind of going out of style, so nice that they're future-proofing this thing. And here, of course, is where all the cables come out of the stem, which is pretty similar to all the other Ausom scooters. On this side of the scooter, we do have this robust looking kickstand, and it does position the scooter at a very good angle. That way it's not tipping over. And while we're on this side, you do have your motor wires. Unfortunately, there are no motor quick disconnects, and these wheels are not split rims like we've seen on some other Ausom scooters. Working our way up to the cockpit of the scooter, we do have these nice locking grips. They are made of rubber, and locking grips will help prevent these things from twisting around, especially in hotter weather, so that's definitely a nice touch. Behind that, we do have our cable actuated brake lever, which has got a nice pull to it. And then, of course, we've got our little control pad here, which has got a trigger style throttle. And what's nice about these is you can actually use the throttle, get a finger on the brake, and hold the handlebar all at the same time. So I definitely like this setup. Here we've got our power button. We've got our plus button, which will allow you to go up a speed level. You can also press and hold this, which will turn on your headlight. And then, of course, down here we've got minus, which will take you down a speed level. And then we've also got the button for walk mode. At the center of the cockpit, we do have our glorious second generation display that Ausom is using on its newer scooters. If I hit the power button, you'll see this thing turn on. Look at all those fancy colors. This is asking for the NFC card. This scooter comes with 3, by the way. 2 of these triangular ones, as well as an NFC card to use as like a backup. But anyways, this is our display. Here you can see we've got park mode. We've also got eco mode, sport mode, and race mode. We've got our speedometer here. We've also got an odometer at the top. If you hit the power button, you'll see we've got a trip readout. We've also got voltage, and then it goes back to the odometer. And then down here you do have your battery display. Now this L2 Max does allow you to go into the advanced menu settings, or the P settings, and to get there all you have to do is hold the plus and minus button. That'll take you over to the P settings menu, and here you can use the power button to toggle through the options. So for example, I'm going to go to P12, that is acceleration strength, and I can hit the minus button to get less acceleration and torque, or I can use the plus button and go all the way to 5 for maximum power output. Me personally, I like level 2. And to save those settings, you just hold the plus and minus button. That'll take you back to the menu screen. Here, you can also double click on this, and what happens is it'll turn off the deck lights. So if you want to turn off the deck lights, you absolutely can. Here on the left-hand sides of the handlebars, you do have this DDM button. That is single or dual motor mode. So when it's, red, that means you're in dual motor mode. If you click on this and the light goes off, it is single motor mode. And you can also see that on the screen. When I push dual motor mode, you get 2 little wheels on there. Pretty fancy stuff. Here to the left, we do have our turn signal indicator. So going left, you know, it turns on your left turn signal, you hit it again to turn it off. Going right, and you hit it again to turn that off. And then here is our super fancy horn. Listen to this thing. Yeah, it's pretty high pitched. Definitely different than the other horns that I've heard on scooters, but it is what it is. Here's our left grip, and then here's our left cable actuated brake lever. Now, one final thing I want to leave you with before we head out on our first impressions ride is how well balanced and quiet these wheels are. Fantastic. All right, folks, so now that we've gone over all the features of this L2 Max, I'm going to go ahead and get this thing charged up, and we're going to head out on our first impressions ride. So we are on our first impressions ride with the Ausom L2 Max. And first thing I want to say is that this scooter feels like a hybrid between the original Ausom Gallop as well as the original Ausom Leopard. Now, as I was mentioning before, this scooter doesn't have hydraulic brakes, but it does have similar coil springs that we find with the original Leopard with rubber dampening. So this scooter gives you the option to choose between cruising around in single motor mode as well as dual motor mode. And I'll just tell you right now from experience, single motor mode on a dual motor scooter is a lot more of a tamed down experience. So if you're looking to go on a relaxing cruise around the neighborhood, single motor mode is definitely the way to go. For me personally though, if I'm going to be buying a dual motor scooter, I definitely keep it in dual motor mode. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to single motor mode. I'm going to pull over to the side here, give you an idea of what the acceleration looks like on something like this. So here we go, throttle all the way in. It's a very tame experience, so if you're a beginner rider or something, this could definitely be a nice, comfortable way to get a hang of the scooter. You switch it into dual motor mode, well, that's a different story. All of a sudden you feel significant increase in power. In terms of the default settings, this scooter does have you set at level 3 out of 5 in terms of acceleration. And I'll tell you right now that, 3 out of 5, it's a little bit of a jerky experience. You can definitely feel that power kick in. Me personally, on these scooters, I like to dial it down to about 2. That way, you're not yanking on this stem. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and cross on over to our bike path where we'll be doing a lot of our testing today. As I was mentioning, this is a 48-volt scooter. Ausom does list the peak wattage on this thing at 2,688 watts on their website. So it's got 2,000 watt motors, which apparently can each, crank out about 1,344 watts of peak power. From a handling perspective, I did mention this scooter does have a notch in the steering, which makes for great straight line performance, and we'll see more of that when we do our top speed and acceleration test. But it is a very subtle notch, and you can barely feel it. And when you're cruising around at higher speeds going straight and you try and turn this, you're not going to have the same kind of wobbly feeling that you do on a lot of other scooters. So here we are, carving on this path. No problem at all. So it's a very subtle notch, which is designed in a way to give you really good control. And so happy to see that on this scooter. A scooter that I've tested in the past, the Ausom Gallop, that's a very stable scooter, but once you get to those top speeds, if you run into any bumps in the road or anything, there is a possibility you can run into speed wobbles, and that's going to be the case with a lot of scooters out there. With this scooter here, we've got very stable performance out of it. Even cruising around at higher speeds, I don't feel any kind of instability or anything that would make me be a little more cautious. In terms of the brakes of this scooter, it does come with dual discs. We've got a 140 millimeter disc up front, in the back, as well as electronic braking. And we'll go ahead and test out these brakes in 3, 2, 1, go. Oh yeah, lots of stopping power. They aren't hydraulic brakes, they are cable actuated, but they do a very good job at bringing us to a stop. I'm gonna go ahead and get us turned around and we'll try that brake test again. Here we go. We'll pick up some speed. All right, we'll try that again in 3, 2, 1, go. Yes, all right. That's solid stopping power. Just be sure, when you hit the brakes on a scooter, especially going at higher speeds, that you lean your weight back. You don't want to be standing straight up or leaning forward when you do aggressive braking, because that can send you over the handlebars real quick, which is definitely not a pleasant experience. Something that I like about Ausom scooters is that they give you the ability to go into the P settings and adjust the electronic brake strength. You know, so if you want maximum electronic braking, you can dial that up to 5. If you want, you know, something a little lighter or not at all, you can, you know, drop that to 0 or 1. So right now I'm cruising around in sport mode. Settings are set to default, which is 3 out of 5 for acceleration and torque. And we're cruising. I mean, you can see the gaps between each of these concrete panels. And this suspension's doing a really good job of eating all that up. You know, so it's got dual coil spring setup. They do use the beefier coil springs that you find on the original Ausom Leopard as well as Ausom Gallop, which I'll tell you right now is a huge improvement over the springs that they use on the Ausom Leopard DT1 Pro. The DT1 Pro is a good scooter. It's just that the suspension is a little more firm and it's a little more springy. It kind of reminds me of a springboard, you know? So, you know, it's good for riding around at higher speeds, but you can definitely feel more of the bumps in the road than you can with this. Another thing to mention from a suspension perspective is that the DT1 Pro doesn't have the rubber dampening. This one does. That way you have a much quieter ride experience, especially when riding around on rough stuff, which, you know, we'll go ride around on some grass, see how this thing does. So we are at this dog park here. On the right hand side there is a little bit of an incline, which will give us an opportunity to test out the hill climbability of this scooter. Obviously we'll be doing our official hill climb test, our extreme hill climb test, as well as our endurance hill climb test with this in the coming weeks. So if you want to check that out, stay tuned, because I plan to get that out here soon. We'll loop around here. We'll cruise around on the grass here all the way to the walking path, and as you can see, suspension's doing a good job on this stuff. Let's see, we'll come through here, and looks like there's some folks walking on the walking path. So let's see, you know what, we'll do a little hill climb test. So up here, you're gonna see we've got a 22% grade. I did this on an e-bike, I actually measured it out. Let's see how this does on a 22% grade. Throttle's all the way in. Oh, I can feel the tires spinning, and we made it. We made it, no problem. In acceleration setting 3. If we set it up to 5, that would unlock the full torque of the scooter, which, you know, we'll do that when we do our extreme hill climb test up the steepest publicly accessible paved road in the Phoenix metro area. Stay tuned for that content. But obviously that 22% grade in that grassy area there wasn't a problem, so I can't imagine that the 23% grade is going to be an issue. But we'll see how fast we can climb that 23% grade when we have all those settings set to the maximum level. I will say though, when you set acceleration strength to 5 out of 5, it is a very jerky experience. I mean, you're getting immediate power. And part of the reason why I don't like riding scooters with those maximum power settings unlocked is that it results in undue stress on scooter stems. You know, you're pulling on that throttle lever, and that scooter is pulling away from you. That's why it's important to have a kick plate on a scooter. I think at this, you know, in this day and age, every scooter that goes above 20 miles an hour should have a kick plate. That's going to allow for a more aggressive stance. So if you do have to accelerate harder, you're not putting stress on that stem. So here around this corner, we've got a very light hill climb. And let's see how we do on this. We are in race mode. Throttle is in. As you can see, we're accelerating up this thing. You know, this eats it right up. I'm really eager to see how this thing performs on our endurance hill climb test, which is up and down 17.5 miles of mountain roads, about 1,900 feet in elevation gain. So that should be fun. We'll be doing that here in the coming weeks. Got a little bit of a pedal here. or puddle, I should say, pedal. Been riding too many bikes. You know, in terms of water resistance ratings, I mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. It's IPX4, which means this thing can, you know, handle light splashes and things like that. I definitely don't recommend riding an IPX4 rated scooter in like heavy rain conditions. You know, sometimes you can't control you know, the weather. You know, you're out and about, and so if you've got some light rain, shouldn't be an issue. But IPX4, the heavy stuff, you definitely want to stay away from that. And generally speaking, scooter companies don't cover water damage because a lot of times they don't know if you know, rode around in some very light rain or whether you submerged your entire scooter in the water. But anyways, we got some open roads here. Let's see how this thing performs at higher speeds. We'll keep an eye out on the handling. You can watch my handlebars here as we cruise around. I mean, this thing is very stable. We're in race mode with default settings right now. I mean, look at the handlebars. There's no jerkiness, nothing. It is literally locked in. And so that's the benefit, you know, of having a scooter that has a slight notch in it. You know, you could go steering dampeners and all that kind of stuff, but looking at this scooter, you know, and how it's performing, we don't need a steering dampener. You know, I'm not a big fan of steering dampeners in the first place. Like ideally, you know, scooters would be designed in a way that wouldn't require a steering dampener. You know, I'm not an engineer. I don't know how easy or difficult that is. You know, at the end of the day, these scooters are basically like a two-wheeled skateboard with a pogo stick for a steering column, you know? So, anyways, very happy with the handling on this scooter. Here, we'll go through some of these dips in the road, test out the suspension. Right up and over that, no problem, no clunking, nothing. You know, and for me, that's really important. You know, I like to have a nice quiet suspension. I don't want to hear the suspension banging around. Even though this scooter has a very slight notch, does not impact our ability to carve around in the road like this. Very nice. I'm actually really surprised they're selling this scooter at $899, you know? I mean, that's a steal of a deal for the kind of scooter that you get, you know? Obviously it's heavier, you know? It's a 70+ pound scooter, so it's by no means light, nor portable. But, you know, if you're gonna be riding around like me, parking it in the garage when you're done, okay, no problem. But if you gotta carry something like this up, you know, a bunch of flights of stairs, you know, it's gonna be a lot of weight to lug around. But anyways, I mean, if that weight and portability aren't issues for you, I mean, this thing so far is a sweet deal. Obviously, we've got a bunch of testing ahead of us, including our range test. You know, they say this thing will get 56 miles of range. But you know, let's talk about that real quick, because, you know, Ausom does state that, you know, this scooter will get, you know, 40 miles an hour on a 48 volt system, as well as 56 miles of range. Those are theoretical figures. If you read the fine print, it's based off of a 143 pound rider riding around on flat ground, minimum stop and go in 68 Fahrenheit temperatures, right? So that's basically treadmill conditions. I weigh 203 pounds. And so if you're curious what the top speed of this scooter is, I'm gonna go ahead and play a clip of a speed test that I did earlier on today, give you an idea of what the top speed is. I'll go ahead and play that now. All right, folks, so we're gonna go ahead and do our top speed and acceleration test with the Ausom L2 Max. I do have the acceleration setting set to 5 out of 5 in the advanced settings menu, and we will be doing this in race mode, so everything is unlocked. We've also got kick to start disabled, and I'll be using the Draggy GPS performance monitor to track this test. All right, folks, so we're gonna go ahead and get started in 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, it's got some pull to it. Here we go. What do I see on the display? 25, 26, 31, 32, 36, 37, 40. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep pushing. Here we go. All right. All right, folks, so looking at the data, 0 to 10 miles an hour, 1.69 seconds, 0 to 15, 2.81, 0 to 20, 4.12 seconds, 0 to 25, 6.26 seconds, 0 to 30, 8.91, and we hit a top speed of 35 miles an hour, and we got there in 13.14 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same test, but in the other direction. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, 20 miles an hour, 30 on the display, 35, 40. All right, let's go ahead and see how we did. All right, folks, on this test, 0 to 5, 0.89 seconds, 0 to 10, 1.8 seconds, 0 to 15, 2.87 seconds, 0 to 20, 4.34 seconds, 0 to 25, 6.3 seconds, 0 to 30, 9.2 seconds, 0 to 35, 15.91 seconds. So, looking at this scooter with me weighing in at about 203 pounds, looks like the top speed is 35 miles an hour. And I'll tell you what, this scooter is very stable at speed. We don't have any wobbles or any kind of, sketchy behavior from the scooter at all whatsoever. And for comparison purposes, I'll go ahead and put the results of this test and how they stack up against some of the other scooters that we tested in this category. So as you can see, me riding around as a 203-pound rider, I was able to hit 35 mile an hour top speed, which makes sense for a 48 volt system. If you weigh less, you might be able to squeeze out more top speed, but I think, that's really pushing the limits of this scooter at 48 volts. But, take a look at those acceleration stats. I mean, this is a quick scooter. It's definitely no slouch, and I think it's going to have more than enough power for like 90% of riders out there. As I was saying, I've tested quite a few awesome scooters. I tested their Gallop, which is one of my all-time favorites. I tested the original Ausom Leopard that comes with the seat, the single motor. That's a fantastic scooter. I tested the Ausom Leopard DT1 Pro, also a great scooter. Suspension can use some improvement, but that thing gets moving really quickly, and it's got a lot of the same features that this scooter has. And so this L2 Max is a really nice addition to their lineup, especially for the price. I always said, it would be sick if they made a dual motor version of the Leopard, of the seated Leopard, and I feel like that's what they did here. And they did it at a very competitive price, $899. The tires on this scooter, they are 10-inch by 3-inch. They are tubeless, which was very nice to see. The Gallop, the Leopard were both tubed tires, which I never really had any issues with. But these are tubeless. I might put PMTs on here. I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet. I've got a pair I was going to put on the DT1 Pro. I haven't done it yet, but we'll see. I got to double check the rim size. But they do use a hybrid tire on here, but it's a lot quieter than the tires that they use on the Gallop and Leopard. Those are a lot louder. That's part of the reason why I put PMTs on the Gallop, just for, quieter ride experience. So, these are very quiet for hybrid tires. Normally, the hybrids that we see on Ausom scooters, they make this droning sound, as you cruise around, especially at higher speeds. Something I want to mention, this scooter likes to go into park mode. So if you let it sit too long, it'll go into park mode. And if you're not paying attention and you try and cross an intersection, you might have no power. So just make sure it's not in park mode before you get going. All right, so we've got our dirt and gravel area here, which means I get to do some scooter cleaning later on today after this. I dropped this down into sport mode, a little less torquey. We'll come into this nice, it's almost like powdered dirt here. Then it turns into some hard packed stuff up here. We've gotten a bunch of rain lately, but thankfully it's nice and dry. But yeah, this suspension is definitely really nice. In an ideal world, every scooter would have hydraulic coil spring suspension. But, unfortunately that's not the case. But I will say that coil spring suspension done right with the proper dampening can make for a very good ride experience. I think the suspension on this scooter so far is, more than sufficient. Better than a lot of the suspensions you'll find on some commuter scooters and stuff like that. And it's got a lot of travel as well, so even with me, 203 pounds, I'm not even bottoming this suspension out. And that's fantastic, because sometimes, the suspension on these scooters is a little on the softer side, and if you're a heavier rider, you'll bottom it out. So unfortunately, a lot of this stuff, because of the rain, is now really soft and powdery. We're going to try and go up this steep embankment here. Looks like somebody put some fake grass turf on there. I don't know what that is, but anyways, up and over that like it was nothing. We'll go ahead and try that again. That was easy. Here we go. It's like washboard surface that we're going over right now. All right, let's try that again. You know what? I think we'll do less of a running start and see if this thing has enough power to make it up. So I'm going to put us in race mode. Should unlock a little more power for us, and we're going to get less of a running start. Let's go from here. Oh, we made it. Wow. Lots of power and good grip on these hybrid tires. Anyways, so yeah, if you want to ride off the beaten path, you can. Just be careful. You got a high center of gravity. Likelihood of eating it goes up exponentially, compared to riding on a road, all else being equal. And right now we're cruising around on this hard-packed dirt and gravel surface. Now, suspension's doing a good job. This is like a washboard surface with a lot of these little dips and rises in the road. So always a good test of the suspension. And this thing's doing a decent job. All right, folks, so there you have it. That was our first impressions ride with the newly released Ausom L2 Max. And all I can say is I'm very impressed with this scooter, especially at its unbelievable price point of $899. The suspension on this scooter does a very good job of absorbing a lot of the lumps and bumps in the road. I would say the suspension feel is something between the original Ausom Leopard as well as the original Ausom Gallop, which is a very good thing. In terms of top speed and acceleration, me as a 203-pound rider, we hit that 35-mile-an-hour mark. I think 40 is asking a little much, especially out of a 48-volt system. If you're a lighter rider, you might be able to squeeze out a couple more miles an hour, but I'm not too sure about the 40-mile-an-hour mark on this scooter. In terms of some areas of improvement on this scooter, I would say that they could do a better job at managing this brake cable here. Sometimes when you're going over bumpy stuff, this thing can slap around on there. Plus, if you have to bail from the scooter, you could get your foot caught in here. So I'll see if I can do something to tidy this up a little bit. One other thing is this headlight. When you get it out of the box, just make sure it's screwed in all the way. If it's not, it'll rattle around. But once I got that nice and snug in there, I haven't had any issues with that. And something else to mention is it's got these turn signals in the back, which is really nice. And it appears like it would have the same turn signals up front, but it doesn't. And this was also the case with the Ausom Leopard DT1 Pro. So Ausom, if you're listening, it would be even more awesome if you extended this turn signal to the front as well, so that you have both forward and rear facing turn signals. In terms of battery, we did 17.25 miles on this ride today, and we still have about 50% battery remaining in the tank. Of course, I will be doing a full range test, extreme hill climb test, endurance hill climb test, the whole 9 yards in the coming weeks. But in the meantime, let me know if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns. Happy to address those in the comments section below. And if you do want to pick one of these scooters up, I will include an affiliate link in the description below, as well as a coupon to help out with that already low price. As always, thank you so much for tuning into Tom's Gadget Garage. We'll see you next time.